Hello and welcome now to lecture 4. We're going to talk about something called the Subdivision Surface Modifier, and this is a really important tool within Blender, and it's used generally in almost all mesh based modeling softwares. So whether it be 3ds Max or Maya or Blender, they all have a Subdivision Surface Modifier or a variation of that. What the Subdivision Surface Modifier actually does is it increases the complexity of the mesh of the component. So we have to sort of figure out how to use that without making the mesh of our item too much. And I'll show you that and show you how we do it. So let's left click anywhere to get rid of the splash screen. And then let's hold down the left button, drag a selection square over the light and press delete. And do the same with the camera. And press delete. So we've just got the cube left. So now let's actually select the cube and let's just pull it to one side. Using the gizmo, we hovered over the little arrow there and we left clicked and then we grabbed it and we pulled it over. Let's actually add a monkey now. So let's press Shift A and mesh and the monkey. There we go. And the monkey's come in. Let's reselect the monkey and now let's press Shift D and let's press X because we want to move the copy we've just created using Shift D on the X axis. So we'll do that. There we go. Let's do that again. So we've still got that monkey highlighted. Let's press Shift D. And it's gone white to symbolize that the copy has been made. Let's press the X button to move the copy in the X axis, and then let's just slide the mouse over. We got 3 copies of the monkey. There we go. So I'm going to press down the Shift button and the middle mouse button and just grab the whole thing and bring it over to sort of recenter ourselves. Okay. So let's select the cube, and it's a cube, isn't it? It's a very simple structure. It's got 8 sides. I'm sorry, it's got 6 sides and it's got 8 corners. Let's press the tab button now. What that's done is put us into what's known as the edit mode. And whenever we do any modeling, chances are we're going to be in the edit mode. In this mode, we can actually move the sides, we can add sides, we can do pretty much everything within the edit mode. We can do some basic things in the mode we were in before, which was object mode. We can scale and we can rotate, but anything beyond that we will do here in the edit mode. At the moment, if you look at these 3 items here, we have this one here, which is the vertex selection. The vertex, or the vertices if it's the plural, is the junction points between the edges. So it's these little dots. So we have this edge, and this edge. The 3 edges, they're joining in the middle, and at that point we get a vertices. This one here is edge selection, so let's press that. And then we can select an edge. There we go, I'm just left clicking on an edge to select it. And then finally I'll go to this one. And this one, this is face selection. So now I'll left click on that and I can select a face. There we go. I'll go back to this one to vertices. And all I really want to demonstrate is the simplicity of the mesh on that cube. It's as simple as it can get right now. So let's hit the tab button to go out of edit mode back into object mode. Let's select the item again, the cube. Let's go over to here, to the spanner, which is the modifiers. Let's add a modifier, and we will add a generate modifier, and we will add subdivision surface. You can see what that's done. It's actually taken that cube and turned it into a very basic sphere. We could actually here, we could go over to this levels viewport and we could just click that up and we could make it an even nicer sphere. And what we could do then is right click on the item with it selected and we could go to shade auto smooth and we could smooth that out even more. So that is what the subdivision surface modifier does, is it takes all the edges and smooths them out as much as possible. But we need to learn how to control that, because obviously we need to figure out how we can use that tool to model accurately to what we want to build. So to do that, what we're actually going to do is first of all turn on this one, on cage. So select that, and then hit the tab button on the keyboard. First of all, select the cube, then hit the tab button on the keyboard, and you can see we've got this mesh again. So how can we turn this into, rather than being a sphere, a cube, but with softened edges, with rounded edges? So let's go here so we can select edges. Let's select this edge here, and then press Control R. And that's put a set of extra edges in, a loop of edges on that cube or sphere as we can see it right now. Just press the left mouse button once, and that's applied it to our cube. And you can see straight away what that's done by adding some extra framework to it. It's restricted the amount of movement for the subdivision surface modifier. It's put some extra framework there, and the subdivision surface modifier has to listen to that and adjust the way the curves are being added. Let's actually just move the mouse up and take that curve closer to the top, and then select that there. Let's select this edge here, press Control R, and then hit the left mouse button once, and then bring the mouse down so that do it anywhere around about there, and left click again, move away from the object, and left click again to deselect that item. And there you go, you can see what we've done. So let's do that again. So let's select this edge now, press Control R, and let's add an extra ring of edges there. So left click, and I'm going to move that over there like that. There we go. And going to select this edge, going to press Control R, left click once, and then move the mouse over. There we go. And I'm going to drop that just there like that. Cool. Let's hit the tab key to go out of edit mode, and you can see what's happened. So we have a cube now with some softened edges. Let's go ahead and apply that. So hit that button there and press the apply button. So we're going to apply the subdivision surface modifier. There we go. And let's soften the edges slightly more. So you can see now how we can actually use the subdivision surface modifier to our advantage to soften all the edges, create new shapes, but still have some say on what actually happens. So let's see what we can do with Susan now using the subdivision surface modifier. So first of all, with this first one, you can see that this is really faceted, it's really jagged edged, and quite crude. And this is what we call low poly. So if we go ahead and select it, and then hit the tab key, we can see what mesh has been used to build this monkey. So let's go up here to the vertices selection one, press that, and you can see the vertices that we have within the monkey. It's quite basic, low poly, but the more edges and the more vertices and the more faces we have, the more complex the model gets. And the more complex the model gets, the harder the computer's got to work to be able to model it, and then also to render it when we start applying textures. And we have to keep that in mind, because as we build our scene, our environment, if we make the mesh too complex, we're going to get to a point where your computer or Blender just can't handle it anymore. It'll just get too complex. So we always have to keep the mesh as simple as we can, whilst also keeping the model itself looking as realistic as possible. So it's a balancing act between keeping the mesh low but also keeping the model looking good. So what can we do? Let's hit the tab key again to go out of edit mode, back into object mode. Select Susan, right click and shade auto smooth. Go over here to the object properties and slide the normals slide this over to increase the strength of the auto smooth so it affects more angles. There we go. We'll just move that over to a point where it looks good. I think that's about right. About there. There we go. So the shade auto smooth does not actually affect the mesh. We've not increased the complexity of the mesh at all. It's purely Blender's little visual trick. It's just lying to us a little bit about the surface. It's visually improved it, but it's not increased the complexity of the mesh. So that is a good way of actually just improving our model without increasing the complexity of the mesh. So let's apply the subdivision surface modifier to this one. So I'll go there, we'll just select on the item, so left click on the monkey, go over to here, click on the spanner, add modifiers, generate modifiers, subdivision surface modifiers, and we will keep that at its absolute basic. So we'll just keep that at 1. So we'll leave that like that. Actually, let's apply it. So let's apply that subdivision surface modifier, and there we go. But then let's also add the shade auto smooth. So you can see straight away the improvement between the models. So we have a standard model with just the shade auto smooth. Now for this one we've applied the most basic level of subdivision surface modifier, and let's see what we can do with this one. So let's click on this one and let's add the modifier, generate subdivision surface modifier, and let's click this to the top. There we go. And then let's apply that. So let's hold down the left button and pull a selection window over all 3 monkeys. Let's hit the tab key to go into edit mode. And there we go. It took a minute because now we've got some differences in the mesh. We've actually loaded our computer up quite well now with quite a lot of polys. So at this one, this is the first one, which is the low poly version. You can see that our mesh is really simple. Our vertices are as minimal as possible with actually keeping a reasonable shape, and we've applied the auto smooth to that to improve the looks of our model, but we've not increased the amount of vertices or faces or edges. So here we've applied the subdivision surface modifier at its most minimal level, and then we've applied the auto smooth, and you can see straight away how much nicer this one looks, but you can also see that there is an increased amount of vertices, faces and edges. Here we've maxed out the subdivision surface modifier and it just appears black. It's not black, it's just that it's so dense with the vertices, edges and faces that it appears black. But if we zoom in, there you go. That is a lot of vertices. So that's my point, that you cannot just max everything out on subdivision surface modifiers. It will eventually just crash your computer or crash Blender. Because if you think about this house we're going to build, we need to constantly consider the complexity of the mesh. So all the time we have to consider the mesh that we're building and the complexity of the mesh, and keep the items looking as good as possible, but at the same time keep the mesh as low as possible. So low poly, keep the vertices as a minimal level, keep the faces and the edges at the least we can do, whilst keeping our actual modeling looking good. So that is the subdivision surface modifier. I'm gonna delete this one straight away and let my computer breathe. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Bye bye for now.